down by Logan Street. They had the Knights of the Mystic Sea and the Madison Club, and they even had this place where all these Chinese people hung out. It was called the Order of the Literary Patriotic Fists. So we'll figure that out. That's also where Q Liga's tobacconist store was too, I forgot to mention. They had the Washington Club, and everybody there just sat around with powdered wigs, wearing wooden teeth, and there was a Hamilton Club, and that was where all the bankers got together and swindled old ladies out of their mortgages. And then there was the Jefferson Club, and they were a bunch of rowdy folks. They liked to bring almost as much as the people next door over at the Jackson Club. Without telling. Well, if you were to walk a little further in that district of town, I think you could get a striped shirt like that. I think you'd also get a straw hat, maybe with a little striped ribbon. Kind of festive touch. There's all the sleazy places. Right near the Logan Street, of course, there was the Heartbreak Hotel. Right next to there, you had the Roadside Zoo. That Roadside Zoos, I'll tell you, they're disgusting. National flood. 10 years, good 10 years after everybody else got rid of them roadside zoos. Any town still had themselves a roadside zoo. All sorts of miserable shivering raccoons. They even had a big brown bear chained to a stake in the backyard. And a big bag of brew in there too. Well, then there was the place, didn't have any sign or anything. It just had a little cardboard sign in the window written in pencil and said, cold beer. That's where all the gamblers and hustlers and the party types used to go. They walk into that cold beer place, they walk out 4 hours later, just as happy as they could be. Now, it couldn't have just been the beer. I think they had something in the back room. Yeah, then next to there was the big store. They didn't sell nothing. Just a bunch of guys standing around their shirt sleeves. Every once in a while, some feller from around the States would wander in here. He wandered out there, wouldn't even have his shirt left on his back anymore, and them slickers in the big store got through with him. And right next to there was this posh gambling den. That was upstairs from the big store. Maybe that's where all those fellas that were walking into the cold beer place were going. Maybe they were going to the posh gambling den. I would kind of doubt it. I mean, I've done some gambling. Gambling doesn't put that kind of thing on my face. I just can't figure. Well, up by Swan Lake, there's this place called Party Beach, and that's where all the young folks would gather of a weeknight, or a weekend. Just about any old time, especially in the summer when we all had off from school. They'd sit around, try to build fires, but the sand was too soaked to boil. They didn't get enough firewood to start a fire. I know that sounds kind of contradictory. Couldn't even. That sand was hard as concrete. Couldn't make the fire on that sand. Yeah, well, flowing through there, you had the Powder River, Sauk Harbor, Moonlight Bay. I spent my honeymoon on Moonlight Bay. We were in there for 3 days. We didn't eat a bite. Odor comes knocking on the door at the Moonlight Bay Hotel where we made a honeymoon. He says, "Don't you people want to eat?" And I says to him through the door, and I'll pay the father to get out to leave my bride. He says, "Well, we're living on the fruits of love." And he says, "Well, will you stop throwing the skins out the window?" Yeah, lots of nice memories from that. Anytime. It's been a while since I've been there. Just got back there not too long ago. It's really changed in a lot of ways. Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a lot of stores that ain't there anymore. There's a big boy and the fat man shop over by the Homodrome. You know, that's a big baseball stadium. Baseball team is called the Robber Barons. The Doomtown Robber Barons. And they had these little insignia. It was like it was a top hat and a bag of money. That was their insignia. And they wore like, you know, big white with green pinstripes kind of outfit. The tennis shoes had little laces, looked like dollar signs. I'll tell you, there's a whole bunch of places that used to be down by the Homodrome. Well, they've torn that down. They put up a big concert hall now. Actually, they built some condominiums up there called Einstein Place. There's a sign in front of it that says, "Einstein Place, where all the smart people live." Well, up by Knob Hill, that was the swank district. I didn't wander around here too much. I didn't want to get arrested. But, yeah, in front of the old Homodrome, back there used to be, there was a big man's and a fat man's shop, and there was a Pursuit of Happiness clothing store, and a kissing booth, and a souvenir shop. I just loved to hang out there and watch all the little girls with little swords on their lips kissing all those folks from out of town. I'll tell you, they were regular typhoid winners and girls that worked at the kissing booth. I think they were single-handedly responsible for the outbreak of hurricane in the early 70s. Oh, that's kind of depressing, but you know, that's why they tore it down. There was a sports gaming bar Everybody in there had to be dressed in sports uniforms. We couldn't talk about anything but sports. And we had 3 TVs. One of them had basketball, one of them had baseball, and one of them had either football or hockey, depending on what season it was. And the people who were fans of a particular sport would sit around in the uniforms, and they'd sit around and just talk hockey and baseball and basketball and all these sports that had balls in them. Like the men there, they all had balls, and they wanted you to know it. And they sat there drinking. You know, these like doing Boilermakers. You know what a Boilermaker is. Now I know what you're thinking, Boilermaker is when you get a shot of whiskey and you chase it with a shot of beer. No. That's not a Boilermaker. Boilermaker is when you get a big old mug of beer and you drop the shot glass in it, and then you drink the whole thing down without missing a beat. You know where you're at. Well, in Brooklyn Eastward, on Orchestra Street, that's where all the theaters were and stuff. Just down from the Easy Street. Well, along Orchestra Street, there's this little store called Obscure Antiques, but it was on the main street, but nobody could find it, so it never had a customer. There was a flower shop near there called Please Don't Eat the Daisies Flower Shop, but somehow the D fell out, and it was Please Don't Eat Daisy Flower Shop. Well, that happened, all the men were flocking in there to see just what was happening with Daisy. But, yeah, right next there was the Good Girl Clothing Shop. You notice as soon as the Good Girl Clothing Shop, big red ribbons that glue in your hair, and they give you a lollipop when you walked out the door. My little sister, she liked to go in there, even though she was too young to buy any of the clothing there. Except for the big red bows. They were so big, they were bigger in her head. She could walk around like this. I had to pull her by her pigtails, straighten her up. Get her home, time for supper, pork chops, studio wrestling. My dad flipping a silver dollar up in the air, catching it, watching Bruno Sammartino, the champion of the world, studio wrestling. My mom, she used to cook the pork chops for 1 hour and 45 minutes. She was afraid of trichinosis, even though there hadn't been an outbreak of that in over 20 years. And so the pork chops were just as hard as could be. I swear you needed a pull chisel to cut them. Well, let's see. Yeah, it was kind of a sleazy part of town, actually. Right down from Easy Street. There was the beauty shop. I caught the smallpox there once, and maybe with the chicken pox. Then I went home and I gave it to all the neighbor boys. And little Eugene Hoffman reference. Ma, she got real bad. She was standing out there in her apron with an L&M hanging out of the side of her mouth and her hands covered with spaghetti dough, screaming at my mom because I gave her precious Eugene the chicken pox. Yeah, there was road flash and blue road attorneys at law, and the Bijou, the Roxy, radio station WHIZ. They had this boy and this jockey, and every once in a while, big flash of lightning would happen, and there'd be this fellow dressed in a red suit there instead. There's the fun and games amusement arcade, and there's the Triple X arcade, which I wasn't allowed to go into. And there was this wine shop there for a little while. It was called Having a Wonderful Wine. And some fellow had written just under it, Wish You Were Beer. Well, we were to head a little more east along Orchestra Street. You can see all these clubs. You know, a lot of fly-by-night clubs. None of these clubs, they seem to last not much longer than about 9 months. There was the Land of a Thousand Dames. There was a burlesque show, and then there was the Flip Side record store and a split screen video where my daddy should have got a job, but he didn't. So I missed out on big video generation. Yeah, there's always clubs. I remember back in the 60s, they had this place called Awareness, and everybody sat around drinking this stuff called grass juice. It's supposed to be real good for you. Had vitamin K in. And there was this place right next to it. There was this little tumble-down shack. It was called Anarchy. Iggy Pop and the Stooges played there once. Well, I got tore down. They replaced it with the disco drum. There was a country and western bar there called Country Roads. It was run by this fellow named Country Roads. Don't ask me to figure it out. And for a little while, they had this place called Funky Town. I used to step on around Funky Town sometimes. Sometimes I even wear this shirt. Yeah. And then they had the authentic Wild West Ranch. So you know something? After they got rid of the authentic, that's when people started going there. Nobody wants an authentic Wild Ranch. You know, I mean, you don't want to saw us on the floor and spittoons and filthy glasses for the beer. So after we changed to the Wild West Ranch, we roped in them doggies like there was no tomorrow. Just goes to show, it's all in the name. Well, then, you know, the thing is, people don't remember the old places, like the Moon June Palace, where your parents used to spoon. They hold each other tight all night long, dancing to that big band music. Well, that place had rats in it. It was deserted for years. Nobody remembers the Roxy Dome either.